What if your world wasn't invaded, but eaten alive? The Tyranids don't negotiate. They don't conquer. They consume. To them, planets are not territories, but meals. In this breakdown, we'll follow their invasion step by step, from the hidden infection of Genestealer cults to the apocalyptic rival of a Hive Fleet, to the total consumption of a biosphere. Along the way, we'll see why humanity has resisted in battles like Macragge and Gryphonne IV, and how real-world biology makes their methods terrifying plausible. If you're excited for this scientific deep dive into the Tyranids, leave your like, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most terrifying factions of the Warhammer 40k universe. On most colonies, daily life is ordinary. Farmers worry about crop yields, miners about ore shipments, and governors about production quotas. But while the facade of stability continues, the first step of Tyranid warfare is already underway. It begins not with bombardment, but with a whisper: the infiltration of Genestealers. Stowed away on drifting hulks or smuggled into port by careless traders, they arrive unnoticed. When they strike, it's not to kill, but to plant a seed. A Genestealer implants its victims with an alien genetic marker that alters germ cells. The infected host remains alive, even seemingly normal, but every child they produce is a hybrid, bound physically to the brood mind. Within a few generations, entire bloodlines serve an alien master without even realizing it. This is how entire populations can be turned into sleeper agents, loyal to the hive mind. The terror lies in their patience. A hybrid might be indistinguishable from a normal human. They work jobs, raise families, salute the same banners, and pay their taxes. Your commanding officer, who drills beside you every morning, might one day turn his weapon not on the enemy, but on you. A smiling governor might delay mobilization just long enough for the planet's defenses to collapse. This corruption hides behind ritual and faith. Genestealer cults weaponize religion, turning devotion into indoctrination. Banners of brotherhood and equality conceal worship of the brood lord. Over time, they infect institutions, military regiments, trade unions, bureaucracies. The infection spreads so subtly that by the time suspicion emerges, it's systemic. The cult is already part of the society's skeleton. The danger isn't only political or social. Each cult radiates a psychic signal, a low thrum in the warp that binds its members into a coherent brood mind. The same signal grows until it becomes a beacon. Once bright enough, it acts like a flare in the void, calling the Hive Fleet across the stars. The planet is now marked for harvest. If there is hope of resistance, it comes only at the very beginning. Lone Genestealers, lictors, or biodrones act as vanguard organisms. Destroy them before the signal takes root, and you may delay the swarm. History records that a few vigilant outposts have done exactly that, buying years or even decades of reprieve. This strategy mirrors Earth's biology. Think of parasites like Toxoplasma gondii, which rewires rodent behavior to make them reckless, ensuring they are eaten by cats and thus spread the parasite's life cycle. Or Ophiocordyceps, the so-called zombie ant fungus, which hijacks insect nervous systems and drives them to die in positions ideal for spore dispersal. Genestealer cults work on the same principle: infiltrate, alter, and exploit hosts from the inside until resistance is biologically impossible. Even at the societal scale, there are parallels. Ant colonies or termite mounds function without central leadership, yet millions of individuals coordinate as though they share one mind. Locust swarms shift from solitary grasshoppers into billion-strong waves once density triggers a chemical transformation. That tipping point mirrors the shift from cult to planetary beacon. At first unnoticed, then unstoppable. The real horror is that by the time the sky glows with alien fire, your society has already devoured itself from within. And that is when the sky begins to fall. The arrival of a Hive Fleet transforms the abstract into the apocalyptic. What begins as pinpricks of light across the heavens resolves into fire, and then into impact. Mycetic spores descend by thousands, vast organic pods raining from orbit. Each one is alive, bursting open to release swarms of Tyranid bioforms, weapons, and alien growths. In minutes, cities that once thought themselves safe become killing grounds. But even before the first spore hits the ground, the invasion has already crippled the planet. The shadow in the warp envelops the system in silence. For astropaths, it's like drowning in a psychic static. Messages vanish into noise. Psychers collapse into seizures or madness. Entire armies realize in one instant that their distress calls will never reach the Imperium. No reinforcements are coming. The fortress world that might have stood with help is now an island under siege. Once the sky rains fire, the world itself begins to change. Capillary towers erupt from the ground, organic spires that pierce the atmosphere. This is not simply conquest. It's an ecological collapse, weaponized. A thriving biosphere becomes biomass stripped cell by cell. Biologists on Earth might recognize the pattern. Locust swarms can reach densities of 80 million insects per square kilometer, stripping farmlands bare in days. The Tyranid swarm operates on the same principle, but scaled to worlds. By around day 50 of an invasion, oceans are siphoned and forests reduced to husks. By day 80 to 100, the planet is effectively dead. Seas gone, atmosphere consumed, biosphere converted into Tyranid flesh. The armies pouring the spores are more than monsters. They are adaptive weapons. Endless gaunts overwhelm defenses. Carnifexes smash armored walls to rubble. Hive tyrants orchestrate with precision like generals carved from bone and sinew. If a design falters, the hive mind rewrites it. DNA is altered, new strains bred, and the next wave arrives, immune to whatever slowed the last. Resistance isn't just difficult, it is rehearsed against, improved upon, and eventually annihilated. This makes Tyranids more than an enemy. They are a system, an industrial-scale feedback loop of failure, analysis, and adaptation. So when the Hive Fleet falls upon a world, the real question isn't whether the defenders can win, it's whether they can hold long enough to make the swarm bleed time. The Imperium has recorded movements where humanity resisted, even when logic said it could not. These aren't victories in the conventional sense, but they are stories of endurance. Battles sacrifice bought enough time for survival to mean something. The most famous of these is the battle for Macragge. Hive Fleet behemoth struck Ultramar, and the chapter's first company, its most seasoned warriors, anchored the defense at polar fortresses. Wave after wave of Tyranids slammed into their positions. Ammunition ran dry. Marines fought with chain blades in hallways clogged with alien corpses. They bought time, narrowed fronts, forcing the swarm to bleed on bottlenecks. When the battle ended, every veteran of the first company lay dead. Yet the delay was enough for the Ultramarine fleet reinforcements to strike the Hive Fleet in orbit and drive it off. The Imperium called it a victory, but it was a Pyrrhic one. Macragge was saved at the cost of the chapter's beating heart. On Gryphonne IV, a Forge world, defenders knew they could not hold the planet itself. Instead, they turned their focus to preservation. Schematics, technologies, and knowledge were evacuated even as the world fell. Gryphonne was consumed, but the Imperium salvaged what mattered most: the ability to continue building, fighting, and resisting elsewhere. Other battles followed the same grim logic. Ixar IV's defenders sabotaged capillary towers and brood hives, stretching the invasion by weeks. That delay allowed nearby systems to prepare. Sometimes exterminatus was the only answer, sterilizing entire worlds with cyclonic torpedoes to deny biomass to the swarm. It meant sacrificing billions of lives, but against Tyranids, denial itself becomes a victory. And humanity is not alone in these standoffs. Ioden's ghost warriors held against Hive Fleet Kraken despite staggering losses. The orcs of Octarius continue to fight a war so unending it has become a biological arms race, predator and prey locked in escalation. Neither side wins, they only evolve faster. Patterns emerge from these stories. Macragge was a victory bought in blood. Gryphonne IV was a loss that preserved the future. Ixar IV was a delay that spread survival outward. None destroyed the swarm, none reversed its tide. At best, humanity carved out enough space to endure, which raises the deeper truth: the Tyranids cannot be beaten in battle, they can only be survived. The terror of the Tyranids comes not from their numbers, but from how natural their methods feel. The hive mind turns an entire species into a superorganism. Each bioship, gaunt, and spore is just a cell in a larger body. We see this principle on Earth. Ants form bridges with their own bodies, build colonies that stretch for hundreds of kilometers, and strip forests of food in hours. Termites regulate mound temperatures with ventilation systems rivaling human architecture. What appears miraculous is simply distributed intelligence, millions acting as one. The Tyranids are this scaled to galactic dimensions. Modern science shows us similar principles. Swarm robotics uses fleets of simple machines to explore or build in ways a single robot could never match. Artificial neural networks follow the same rule. The hive mind functions as both, an evolving neural net and a swarm operating as one. Their adaptation mirrors microbial life. Bacteria engage in horizontal gene transfer, swapping DNA to become drug-resistant in a single generation. Tyranids do the same with entire species. Every failure is recycled in a new strength. If a bolter pierces a gaunt's carapace, the next brood grows thicker armor. If poison works once, the next wave arrives immune. Imagine a predator that never makes the same mistake twice. That is the hive mind. The ecological collapse they cause is also grounded in science. Algal blooms can suffocate lakes by consuming oxygen, turning vibrant ecosystems into dead zones. Tyranid consumption is simply those same processes applied on a planetary scale. Capillary towers act as siphons, pumping seas into orbit. Soil becomes ash. Atmospheres collapse into vacuum. Within months, life itself is gone. Even the shadow in the warp has analogs. On Earth, cheetahs grow faster as gazelles grow swifter. Each species escalates endlessly, neither side ever truly winning. In Octarius, orcs grow stronger from battle, while Tyranids adapt to counter them. It is evolution turned into an arms race with no end. Put together, they embody the cruelest efficiencies of life, sharpened until survival itself becomes the weapon. And if these principles already thrive on Earth, then against their galactic scale, what chance would you really have? The truth is that surviving a Tyranid invasion is not about winning, it's about endurance. Every story of survival is one of sacrifice, of delaying the inevitable, buying time, and preserving fragments of humanity's future. The swarm cannot be bargained with, and it cannot be destroyed. It can only be endured, one desperate stand at a time. So, if you were there, which role would you take? Would you hunt Genestealers in the shadows, hoping to cut the infection before it spreads? Would you hold the choke points of a fortress, like Macragge, knowing you would not live to see dawn? Or would you safeguard knowledge and technology, ensuring that even if your world fell, the Imperium itself endured? Drop your choice in the comments below, and if this breakdown changed how you imagine surviving the swarm, make sure to like and subscribe for more nerd science analyses. Because remember, according to Imperial records, a Hive Fleet could strip a planet of all life in less than 3 months.